So welcome to Thriving Thursdays. This is our first Thriving Thursdays for 2021. And I'm so excited to be here and to have you with us. Join us for this special edition for Black History Month. And our focus is on Black mental health. I usually have on mental health advocates or mental health professionals. But I was so excited. I wanted to make this first one special. And so I talked to my mom and invited her to be one of our guests. And as we talk later on, you'll hear why there's a connection. There is definitely a mental health connection here. So you'll definitely tune into that. But as we get started, I wanted to just share a little bit about InnoPsych. So some of you have been longtime supporters. I appreciate that. Um, we are actually officially 1 year old. So we on January 7th, we officially launched InnoPsych. And so this is our 1 year anniversary. So very, very special. And I think that's also why I wanted to have my mom on for this special show as well. So I want to share a little bit of data. In a year, we have done so much. This is some of our data. We have received over 900 requests for therapists from people of color. Right now, we actually have about 300 and over 350 therapists featured on our website. So we're continuing to grow that. We have a very ambitious goal this year of raising that number from 350 therapists of color to 2,021 therapists of color for 2021, right? You get the math. So I love alliteration. And so as I was thinking about what was my big goal for this year, I really wanted to make sure that we grew the list because we're getting lots and lots of requests for therapists. As you might imagine, with the pandemics, now this mental health pandemic, and so really being able to make sure when people go on our list, they can find someone that they're looking for. So if you know a therapist of color, if you are a therapist of color, make sure that they are on the website. Some of the other things that we've done when we launched in January, and then soon after that, we had COVID. And so there was really a call to have educational programming around mental health and around mental wellness. And so one of the things that came out of that was the Thriving Thursdays program. So very excited to be able to launch that program. I also work with a number of different community-based organizations to really highlight mental health. Some of you are here, some of the people I've partnered with are here today. So thank you again for that support and for being willing to partner with me in this work because it's definitely that support is needed in order to do this work well. We're in over 38 states. We are national, and so we definitely want to make sure that we have all 50 states covered. And someone recently asked about international, so that's definitely in the pipeline. And then, thank you again for coming to the programs. We've had over 4,000 people register for our programs. We've had well over 6,000 people view all the different programs. And so again, we couldn't do this work without you. So we really appreciate your support. So I will stop sharing my screen. And I want to share a little bit. I'm not going to give a long bio about my mom. And I was like, should I call you Kathy? Should I call you Francis? Should I call you Mom? She's like, well, just call me Mom. Yes, in our culture, that's what you call your mother, Mom. So we'll keep it that way. So, as we think about Black mental health, Black History Month, as I mentioned before, I really wanted to focus on Black mental health. And our goal at InnoPsych is really to increase the visibility of therapists, to make sure that if someone is looking for a therapist or considering therapy, that we kind of break down those stigma. Like when you think about a therapist, people often think of an old white guy smoking a cigar or something, right? So we really want to change that, what a therapist looks like. So really want you to have visibility and to see us in different roles. Many of the therapists we brought on, they've shared their own personal struggles with mental health and things that they've used to thrive. And so that's the goal, to make sure that we can have these conversations and that there's no more stigma, really reducing the barriers. So my mom, as I describe her as a serial entrepreneur, she's my first model of an entrepreneur. And so that definitely has built in me through her example. And so, we're going to talk about that, but we're also going to talk about how mental health has impacted our family. And some of that is connected to why I got into the field. And some of that is just, many of our families, most families have someone in their family who has experienced some mental health struggle at some point. And so again, we want to just break down those barriers and model talking about mental health with our friends, with our family. That's one of the most frequent questions we get, is like, how do we talk to a family member or friend who might be struggling, right? So, we're going to model some of that today. How do you talk to family about mental health? All right. So just a little bit about me. I grew up in Barbados, and I very early, like in high school, I knew I wanted to be a psychologist and didn't have a lot of models. I, used to watch a show called Bob Newhart, this old white guy who owned a bed and breakfast. But he also was a psychologist, and I just love the show. It's kind of silly, but that was definitely an inspiration for me. But also there are family members, and we'll hear a little bit about that, who inspired me to pursue this journey. Not even haven't ever met a real life psychologist. So, but it's something that I knew that I wanted to do from very early on, and I pursued that. So one of the things I always start these conversations with is purpose, like what has driven you. So Mom, tell me a little bit about kind of your childhood and what inspired you to pursue entrepreneurship. You're on mute. Let me unmute you. Okay, can you unmute yourself? There you
go. Okay, my childhood, well, I grew up also in Barbados, the gem of the Caribbean, that beautiful little island, and the parish of St. Michael. And I had a household of brothers and sisters. Well, one sister mainly at that time. And we had fun as children because we did a lot of outdoor playing. We play outside a lot. We climbed trees. We went to the beaches, you know, and we play a lot of games. And mostly we're outdoors. We just always try to do our work quickly that we would get outside to play. It's different now, but that's what we did, growing up. Those are childhood memories. I remember a lot of playing, and so and I always liked to play a shop. There was a game we played, a shop where would be the shopkeeper, not like the grocery store. No, it was like the old shopkeeper, maybe a sole proprietor, and we would wear the sand for sugar, flour and stuff like that, and we would have like sweet paper. We call it sweetie paper, the little wrappings, and that would be our money, and then some cut plate and so. But I had to be the shopkeeper. I know it was it was trouble. I always, I always wanted to be the shopkeeper. Yeah.
Oh, very, very interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I always wanted to be shopkeeper.
Okay.
Serve other people, right?
Yeah. Okay. So that connects. Well, tell us like what, so you want to be a shopkeeper from very young. And, many of us oftentimes our childhood play turns into the things we actually become in our careers. So how did that fast forward us some time ahead? So did you become a shopkeeper?
Well, from like shopkeeper was like around maybe 6, 7, 8 10. But I remember from early I saw a need. I didn't now we say entrepreneur, but then I said like sales. So I saw a need even when it was 10, between 10, 12, and like 14. In the summertime, there was a lady that had a ackee tree, and this was the sweetest ackees you could ever get.
So let me pause there for the people who are not Bayesian or Caribbean. Ackee is this fruit, and if you're Jamaican, you have a different thing of what ackee is. So ackee is this, I don't even know how, I usually try to describe it. It's outside is green, inside is yellow. Um, when you get a good one, you just, it's to die for. But I can't describe what the texture is. I'll come back to that. But yes, it's a fruit that, you know, in this season in this our summertime. But very popular. Yeah.
Yeah, so we all play as kids and we would but then I realized when I went by the lady that had a big tree and she was selling 10 for a cent. I said, 10 for a cent. And now like people that coming through and selling Akis will be selling for a cent. So I decided, whoa. I went home and I got 10 cents I take from my mom to start out. And I went there by 100, 10 pence. And I came back home and I took a little drawer out of my dresser, out of the little dresser, and I put it right by the door. And my friends, I said, have Akis for sale. Before in about 10 minutes, I sell them 5 for a cent. Right?
So you went
So
wholesale. She was wholesale. That was your
wholesale.
wholesale person.
Yeah. So I
Then
yeah.
you okay. So
Right. So
you were able, and that's an entrepreneur. You see an opportunity and you just took it.
right. So I realized then that so then I would do that then on the cages. I realized it was a need, you know. So I didn't disclose my source, but I would do that. And then also my brothers, I had my two older brothers, they were working at the time. And I opened a little laundromat just with two of them, a laundry. So they would pay me whenever they get paid by the week and I would do their shirts and so. And then I also had a landing tree because one brother he had moved out and he was living on his own his girlfriend or whatever. But he would run when Wednesday, he would always run out of money. So now all the little money I would come and they would lend him then $2. And he would pay me back like maybe $1.50 on it on Friday. And
Wow. I hope there weren't any broken knees involved in this.
No, he would know up to now we lived good. No, he always paid. But that particular brother, he was good. He's the only person that knew very high in my money because some of the others, I couldn't let them know. So it was like
So
so I
someone in
think
the
I
chat
always
has
had
said interest. So you kind of knew very early on, not just how to make money, how to save money, but also how to charge on your money. So very
yeah.
cool, very cool.
Hmm.
So tell us about some of your, so I will one of the things that I remember from early on was your journey from moving into actually what we call a mobile convenience store. That's a fancy word. In Barbados, we call that was like a coolie man. They had people who would go around in the country and sell products and different things. Kind of bringing it to you is like this the version if you know if you have a vision of 7-Eleven, but this was a 7-Eleven on wheels. And so I remember in my early childhood, you started, you got a car and you would sell products out of your car. You would move around to different workplaces. So tell us about that journey into that business.
Yes. Well, before I had a car, you probably were too small to remember, but what we did when we didn't have a vehicle, we call it M2, which was our feet. So before that, it was yeah, once we traveling on bus or walking, we call it by the name of the parish. So it was in St. Michael, so that time was M2. So I saw a need. I never did survey to find out but I just in my own thing I realized it was a need and I would buy like some cosmetics, some products and so and I would sell them and they did very well doing that. So then after the finance start coming in, then I bought a car and then I would sell with the car. But before, yeah, and then at one stage though, I was working for the insurance company and actually I was doing both, but like in my lunchtime, then I would go and, make some sales. But it was never, I worked for the insurance company a couple of years, did underwriting, more than underwriting life. But I was never comfortable somehow. I always want to be out on the road doing stuff. So I gave up my job then at one time because I realized that no, I could I had a bigger need, you know. So people think, oh, she gone mad, she gone crazy, she leave a safe job to go and do something. So me and my mobile store, that's what you call it. We worked there from town to country. And I was the only person doing that besides the Indian people, per Indian um, person. So even when I go to some homes, the children would say, they call me the coolie man. Mommy, mommy, the coolie man is out there, you know. But they had a big clientele, town and country.
Very cool. So you were talking about you're a pioneer. So you were no longer the coolie man, you were the coolie woman.
Coolie woman, yeah.
And you were this only one, and yeah, at that time there were very few women who were doing what you were doing. And then at some point you transitioned from that work into a salon, and that's kind of where we're going to pick up and talk about the mental health piece, because um, one of the things that I know you've said it, you've joked with me, is like you've told me you could be a psychologist because the amount of things that people share with you when they're in your chair. But I've also heard that from other hairstylists, in that they use, they go to the hair salon or the barber shop, and that's a place where they kind of share things that they might be struggling with. So tell us a little bit about your work as a cosmetologist, a hairstylist at the time, and how did people use you? Did you find that, did you notice that people were sharing things with you, being vulnerable with you when they were in your salon?
Yes. Yeah. I had my clients, we were like, it was like not just the normal business thing. We were very close, in fact, very close to me, I must say. Even when my clients call me to make an appointment, they're like, sometimes I've been hurried, but you know, you can't get away. They would tell me, Kathy, I would like appointment for X time, but I have to do this first, and they would give me everything they have to do in the house first and things like that. It was that personal. Yeah, so they should be shared a lot because they know, I think that they felt comfortable and confident with me. And I find the thing about ladies in general, where they getting like a makeover, like sometimes they feel so dull and stuff at home, you know. So when they come down, they're getting all feeling beautiful and so, you know, they really feel relaxed. So they would relax and they would really talk with me. Yeah, they had some um personal issues from abuse to maybe even molestation, incest, you know, whatever they would tell me. But I guess I would try to, you know, give the advice as best as I can. Sometimes people say, well, maybe it's best if you know, maybe go to the police, do whatever. But I was not really trained as a psychologist, but you know, but yeah, can't hear you. You're muted.
What do you think it is about that relationship between your hairstylist, your hairdresser, and your client that allows people to kind of be vulnerable in that space? What is it about that setting that allows people to be vulnerable?
You mean it means something more than trust. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think they trust you and they feel. I think that they get a feeling that how you deal with them. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's how they trust you because how you talk to them, and you know, and
Hmm.
you don't try to like put them down when they tell you stuff. You kind of sympathize with them, you know, so
Hmm.
you feel comfortable. And
Yeah.
it's not like, you see, if they left and they were going straight to somebody to talk to therapist, they might not feel as comfortable. You know,
Mm.
they say she, you know, want to know everything about me, but when they come now there to talk to me, it's not like I'm asking questions directly or so. So they just feel comfortable.
Hmm.
And people have to talk, you know. Sometimes you really have to talk it out.
Yeah. Cool.
So feel comfortable, trusted the person that if the hair is very special, right? And hair is special to people. So
Hmm.
therefore, if I could deal with your hair, I guess that's one of the things.
Hmm.
If you could trust me with your hair, I could trust you too.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, and you're right, right? So here is particularly for Black women, right? Our hair is definitely an extension of who we are, and it's an expression of our personality. I was actually speaking with a friend today who was sharing that she cut her hair in solidarity with a family member who is going through cancer. So she did that in solidarity. Um, but tell me a little bit about what was here. So here, like you were saying, is very personal, very meaningful for folks. What did here also, were you able to tell when your client might be experiencing some kind of emotional stress through the health of the hair? Like how
Yes,
tell a little bit about that.
yes, definitely, definitely. Because there are certain signs you will see in the scalp, and then they might got a little patch, some patches, especially in the crown area.
Mm,
And you know something was going wrong.
mm-hmm,
So I'm gonna ask them, something would say, are you okay? Are you, seeing the doctor? Also to be medication, certain medications they are taking
mm-hmm,
that the hair would break, or stress causes it too.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So we will talk about that.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So as we're on the topic of mental health, and I just encourage folks, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I see some friends here from high school. Hey, Don. I see Stella from my book club. I see Stacy from work. So thank you guys for being here. So one of the things that I wanted to transition into is um, mental health in our culture. There's a lot of stigma around it. Um, and as I mentioned earlier, many families experience this, right? Whether we are aware of it or not. And so I wanted to even talk a little bit about our own family and how mental health concerns have shown up for us and how we've maybe dealt with that. I think, it's funny, again, like when I was growing up, I'd never met a psychologist. And my image of people with mental health conditions was scary, particularly when I was young. And that definitely changed over time. But even I remember, I don't know, we didn't get to talk about this before, but I remember as a kid, I would get panic attacks whenever somebody died. So I don't know if you remember that. I remember it was one,
Oh yeah.
I wouldn't be able to sleep. And of course, we didn't know. I mean, I didn't know. No one named that for me at the time. So I'm curious about like what was that experience for you? And I remember having to take medication at one point, but because I was not able to settle down. So I'd love to hear like from your experience, what was that like having a child?
Oh
I mean, it was very centered around death. Um, but yeah, I'd love to hear kind of what that experience was like for you.
yes.
What did the doctors say? Like, did they give an explanation of what that might have been?
Well, I realized it the first time when you were about 6 plus, because there was this guy that would pass in front of the house. I would have you sitting down outside, and we'd be walking, and he would always talk to you, and you would laugh, and, from the baby. And then at 6 or so, he died. And maybe we weren't really friends, just like neighbors passing hi, hi, and so. But anyway, we went to the funeral because I know he'd really love you and he'd really like you. And I remember maybe you were good and everything, but maybe came back home the night, you were like, you couldn't sleep, and you were like shaking. And I was like, what is this? And I think, and it went on for a couple of nights. I don't think I took me to the doctor then, because Barbadian don't run to the doctors too quick. Something really serious gotta happen. So I try to, we calm you on different things. So, but mostly happen at night. But at the end of the
And I
day,
remember you guys might take me for a drive to help me calm down.
yeah, I used to have to take you for a drive every night. We would drive you all around the place and sort of get you sleep. But the second time I realized it, then you were much older. And I remember your dad, Hampton, Frank, had died. You were about, oh, before that, it was mom. My mom passed.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Oh, and I know it was all in my grief. I wasn't paying much mind even at the funeral. Like I really. And then
So
the
just for
night you were
context,
a mess. Hmm?
yeah. So I would just to give context, I was about 10 years old when my mom, I'm getting emotional right now, when my mom's mom died. So just what she, yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah, and you were that was really bad. You would like shake and your feet would just go. So I did take you to the doctor. We would go take me to the beach like every day, myself and my sister. We would play a ball, we would do everything, if you I think it was wrong in the summertime in the vacation. But then at night you would still get the shaking. I get this shaking had me so scared then. Your feet would just be shaking like a leaf. So we took you to the doctor. I don't think they give me very much, maybe just something to calm you or to help you sleep. I can't remember exactly now what they did, but I don't think it had really stopped. It probably stopped at home. We play a lot of games. We did things to get you tired, tired and so. And that was it. But then the last time so then I said, oh, I realized it's related to death, like anybody, because the last time is just before you left for college, you were 17.
Uh-oh.
And you know what was the
He's
sign?
spilling the tea now because I don't remember this one. I think I put
Yeah,
this one out.
I think this was what happened. So this is what happened. I remember clearly. Oh, yes. So I called my sister because when these things happen, you would always ask for milk. If I remember, you would always ask for milk at night. And normally wasn't a milk person that night. So I called my sister, you were 17. I said, Mom, can I sleep with you tonight? I said, okay. And you said, can I have some milk? And I went to call my sister. I said, oh my gosh, you want milk? And we knew from the time we heard that milk, that was our sign. But you were not as bad because you were able to kind of talk it out. So then you talk and tell me how you felt, but you were still shaking and so that was the last thing. But it wasn't as bad as before, but you slept with me a couple nights and yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
I don't
funny. I
know.
know. Yeah, I remember it vividly. I think I remember like three episodes, three distinct ones. But yeah, no one, I don't know. It just came. It was just a fear about the death and maybe the person. There's a lot of in our culture stories about dead people and duppies and things like that. And so I think there was some of that, just some of that
Probably.
folklore, mingling with that fear and worry about the person who'd gone. So,
Yeah.
um, so how mental health has entered our family is through one of your brothers, Uncle Leonard, who's deceased. Um, but he had a significant substance abuse problem with cocaine. And I remember coming home at one point and he invited me into his world. I think it was definitely something he struggled with. And I don't remember how we talked about it as a family, but I know it was definitely something that we were worried about. We try to help him with. But I remember one memory that I have is very distinct is that he invited me to attend one of his Narcotics Anonymous meetings that he would go to. And I think it was part of him. I was in college at that time. I had to come back home to visit. Um, and it was kind of his way of supporting, kind of my interests and my field. Um, but I just have that memory of him invited me to be part of that journey. But I'd love to hear from you. What was that like having and he was the youngest brother, right?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Very sweet. Hmm.
Yeah.
But the thing is that he told me the whole story. Then he was good because when he was good, he was very good. And he told me that some guys at school, high school, had introduced him to this stuff. And he told me, I think it was like marijuana they started on. But the thing is that he said that the other guys never advanced to nothing else. But then somebody just said something he went on. But he remember one of his telling me, he said, never ever, don't even try. He said, because you try it and it's so hard, to get off. He said, because you always try to get that feeling that you had and but he would be good at sometimes. And I think in the end before he died, at least he was okay, like, for that period. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, it was hard. I mean, I know again, like I remember just all of us, well, all of you,
Yeah, we try
doing
hard.
different things to try to support him around it. Um yeah, and I share this because I know, and again, mental health, impacts our different families in different ways, and sometimes it's hard for people to talk about that. And I know, again, given our cultural background, we didn't
Hmm.
really talk about this stuff. You just were in doing mode, right? You're responding mode. Um, but how do we help, part of why I'm doing this work is how do we help the next generation to develop a language to talk about this with each other, to recognize what the early signs are, and to, help to intervene, right? Rather than kind of watching passively by or not knowing what to do. So, that's, a lot of the reason why, I do this work. Um, and I, again, one of the things, and this will be the last thing, and we can open it up for people if people have questions or conversations or connections. Um, but I know we talked about this, and I want to be mindful of your own tolerance, right? Because this is very hard. But we've talked about, you have from early on, you've dealt with grief from a very young age. Um, and I think we talked about, like, again, like when you're a kid, people don't really talk to you about stuff. So do you want to share a little bit about, so your dad, my grandfather died like I never got to meet him.
Yeah.
So do you want to share a little bit about that? And I think you were saying he was an entrepreneur as well.
Yeah, he was. I think my mom was in her right too.
Mhm.
But yeah, my dad died, and I love my dad. My dad died was like 13, and I just remember crying all the time. And I remember, like, if anybody telling me, remember there was a guy, he would say, "Oh, so your dad died?" And I don't care where he was just starting to cry. But my mom would pray, and she would pray with me and talk with me, but we didn't do any counseling or anything like that as such. She prayed, but that was with me for a long time. Because death is normally hard with me too. And then I lose my mom. She died pretty early too. She died younger than I am now. So that was hard also. And then I lose one sister. Then a couple years after, another sister. So, and then I lose my husband now in 2018. So I had some grief to deal with. But how do I, what was the question again? I'm sorry.
Just, yeah, what was that like, particularly as a kid dealing with grief and,
Oh, as a kid, yeah. Um, I don't, well, as you said, Ben, like a kid at that time, nobody think about counseling or psychologists. Even when you told me what to be a psychologist, it was like, I was like, well, I always tell her choose whatever she want to do. And that was the only thing that was the second thing you ever told me you wanted when you were younger, like between 6 and 15, you said you wanted to be an air hostess, and then it was psychologist, then at 15. And it was like, well, I said, well, she's going to change her mind a couple of years, but then stayed with you. So I said, well, maybe, I don't know. The plan was, it wasn't offered in Barbados. So she would come overseas, study in the US, come back home to Barbados. But then they would say, who is going to work with this girl? I said, oh, so I made up my mind maybe I have to put in some extra years and help support her, till the day she decided to change the field. But because I said people are not going to open, that way, and maybe she'd get a job at the psychiatric hospital. But I can see the future really. But you said it. You told me that. Because when you would go with me doing my sales and so, there were like a certain area people going and they were like, oh, guys on drugs and not. Don't you tell me, mommy, I'm going to work with those people. Those type of people I'm going to work with. I was like,
Wow,
oh my God.
really? Okay.
Yeah, you will tell me so. Yeah, when you go up in the IV and stuff like that, you say, mommy. And somebody had asked you, what are you going to do? Psychology? How are you going? You say, yeah, I see the need for it. By the time I finish, there'll be a need for psychology. There'll be a need for it. I'll have work. You say
I was smart even back then. Look at that.
that. Yeah, I remember that. But going back, yeah, back to the question. As a child, we really
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
really talk to nobody as such. You
Yeah.
just cried. But I cried out, and as time went on, you get over it.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever really get over, but I don't know if you talk to some person if you get over better. I don't know because I've never really.
Right. Well, and we're actually, that's a good conversation because as we move into talking about what are the things that you do for self-care for healing. And you know, I make a distinction between like pampering and self-care. Self pampering is when you take care of the outside and you're looking good, you get your hair done. But self-care is really about taking care of the internal, like your how are you feeding your mind and your brain, and how are you healing. So definitely this is a great point to talk about, you know, how have you, what are the things that you do to heal and to support your mental health and your emotional well-being. I know I'll just say this part and then I'll let you talk, but you know, I've said several times, why don't you go talk to somebody, particularly after your husband died? And you're like, you know, you give me the runaround. You didn't really, you avoid my question or my statement, but you found your way. So I'd love to hear you share about the things that have helped you cope and heal with some of the challenging things in your life.
Well, I think faith is very important too.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, so I find having faith, and praise, and so I'm praying, I find that help. And I remember when I came back from Barbados, even this last time, I was still going through some stuff. But then COVID came, Zoom came, and that really, really helped me, zooming into different services and meetings and health. Oh, I love to talk about health. And I try not to, I try to follow the 8 laws of health, try to eat healthy and exercise and get the sunshine and water. And so I find that have helped me a lot too. And recently I have taken up designing yard work, my yard work. And it's like when I go there and do stuff, it's like I don't study anything. It's just, I just feel good. So I think that have helped me. And my latest my latest struggle, not really struggle, but my big okay, I can't even know. But anyway, I used a saw. I used a cutter for the first time. So that was like big for me, cutting my rocks and so. So, doing different things help me take my mind off, all the grief and so.
So I hear your faith, um, your garden. She's gonna say gardening, her lawn design. Excuse us. Okay.
Yeah, I was more than gardening. I was putting down pavers and everything. So
And power tools, power
power
tools.
tools, yeah. So that was my big
So
first time
you
you
are
saw
you're
one.
stepping out of your comfort zone, right? So it sounds like even like doing things that you may never imagine and trying
Yeah,
new things
yeah.
has really helped. That's great. And you know, one of the things that, you know, some of you know, I developed this card deck called Finding Your Sweet Spot, which is going to be renamed. But one of the categories is scenery. And we were talking about how the outdoors is often really helpful for people to connected with nature is really important. And so, you know, one of the questions that I have out here, you know, for folks, and as we enter the conversation and bring you into the conversation is, you know, what are things, what are scenes, what are your favorite landscapes? And then how do you bring that into your living space as a way to kind of promote your own emotional wellness and emotional healing? So I'll put that question out there, but I'd love to open up right now. So thanks, Mom, for sharing. Um, that was, you know, thank you for being brave and sharing some stuff that we might have never talked about. Some things we didn't actually really talk about, even like my panic, we never really talked about that. And talking about some family struggles and kind of putting that out there in this forum as a way, again, to allow people to feel comfortable to open up about these topics with their family. So I'd love to open up any questions you have, any comments, any connections. And I'll put the question in the chat as well. But yeah, I'd love to hear from folks what anything that resonated with you in our conversation today. And feel free, you can post it in the chat or you can unmute. And I know there are lots of folks out here who want to give you love. So if people just want to say hello, that's okay too.
Well, this is my first time on.
Welcome,
Of
Veronica.
I wasn't sure what to expect.
Mhm.
I think that um, your mom and I have some similarities in that we both have an appreciation for the 8 laws of health,
Mm,
and we, having that become our lifestyle and not a fad or diet or New Year's resolution, but a way of living,
mhm.
as essential as our faith, um, because our bodies are the temples of God, and it is the 8 laws of health is like the 10 commandments for your body. And I'm jealous that your mom is into I'm a healthy in a healthy way jealous. How about this? I'm happy that your mom is able to create her own lawn design or landscaping for her home,
Mhm.
um, because it's very medicinal that gardening, not just emotionally, but physically touching the earth. Um, and I think I like your last question. I'm going to make a note of it. Your question was, what is, I don't know if your word was go-to place or safe space, and how to create that on the inside during these pandemic times. But I don't remember your initial question, but I thought that was a very good point. If we figure out how to bring that to us, since we have to be indoors for some time.
Mhm. Yep. Great. Thank you, Veronica. I really appreciate that. Thank you.
So this is Roberta, and I just want to say thank you for sharing your story. And I resonated with the fact that about the grief and that you have endured in life. And it was interesting when you said that as children, nobody speaks about that to you.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I was a person, well, I am a person who I lost my mom when I was an infant. I wasn't even one.
Mhm.
And growing up in my life, like no one never spoke about her. Like I did not hear her, and it wasn't until I became an adult, like I knew who she was. You know, my I lost my dad when I was a child as well, but I knew my dad. My mom I did not know. Um, and I knew who she was, but it wasn't until I became an adult that I had the opportunity to actually I shed tears and I felt like, well, I'm shedding tears for someone that I don't know. But it was like I shed, and then it was like, well, brother, you got some issues. You need to go talk to somebody because it's. I don't think that our families realize what they, what they're doing by not talking about it, and the need that there is a need to actually discuss it. But I had to. I mean, I had to figure it out on my own as an adult. And I think that's part of what has led me into my social work field was from my losses and everything, and what I've gone through. So I just wanted to share that, and thank you for sharing.
Thanks for sharing that, Roberta. Roberta and I go way back. We met doing a fellowship at Trinity Church, Trinity Boston, a pastoral counseling kind of certification, right? Is that right? Am I making that up?
That's right. That's right.
Okay. That was a lot. That was like over 20 years ago.
It's a long time ago. Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So good to thank you for sharing that story. Other questions or connections? Thank you. You guys are warming my heart, just with the connections. I'm gonna post just ways to stay in touch with, psych. But yeah, any final thoughts or questions, comments?
Hi, Charmaine. It's Don.
Hey, Don.
Uh, Hi. How are you doing? It's
Good.
good to see your mom. It's good to see Shireen. It was good to see everybody.
Is that Dawn?
It
Yes,
is.
it is.
Oh
How
my
are you? It's so
Oh
good
my
to see
gosh,
you.
it's been years. Yeah.
Years, years,
Yes,
years,
yeah.
years. So thank you so much for sharing. I do remember the hairdressing salon very vividly. So Um, but on a personal note, I'm not sure if I told you this, Charmaine, but I lost my dad
Mhm.
last year, April,
Mhm.
May, and it was, I wouldn't say it was sudden, but we didn't expect him to go just yet, you know? So it's just dealing with all of that. And then 2020 itself has been a year and a half because I did lost a lot of friends in the year as well, and people that you're just you're not expecting to lose at that point in time, COVID, and for whatever reason. So just hearing, being able to hear and being able to discuss is actually cathartic, and it was very good to be able to have the discussion. I'm good about Daddy, and he lived a good he lived his life, so he's good. And you always say, "Boy, Don, I'm okay," you know. So it was good to have a discussion, and you're right. It's good to talk about it. Once you talk about it, you get it out. Then there are persons who can help you as you talk about it. So I did that a lot, and I'm just happy that I was able to come on and reconnect with old good friends. So it was good.
Thanks for sharing, Don. Don and I go way, way back. That was my best bud back in secondary school. So, so good to reconnect with you. Um, I just, thank you all for being here. I don't know if my sister wants to say anything, any reflections here in your family, a little bit of your family history in this forum. But we're gonna, before you, if you want to say anything, Shireen, but we're gonna be back here every week at the same time at 5 p.m. You'll have different guests on. So stay tuned for that. I put, our information in the chat. So, check back on the events. We'll be posting on, mostly Instagram and Facebook if you want to stay connected. Um, but yeah, Shireen, you wanna say anything as I put you on the spot?
Yeah, you put me on this spot, but it's okay. No, I really, so mom, like, it was great for you to be totally vulnerable. And I know that in our culture, we don't talk a lot. So, um, that was great. I mean, I learned a lot about my family today too, which is, which is good. And the part that I think stuck with me was when we spoke about Uncle Leonard, because I think I know him in his recovery phase or recovered phase, I guess. So it was interesting. And I think a lot of, I had no idea what his struggles were before. Um, and even as a child, but I guess I wasn't supposed to know. But when I got older, then I was like, oh, like, okay, like I didn't know that. So but yeah, it was great to hear about how he kind of invited you into his world as well and really supported. Um, so yeah, I mean, just it was like I enjoy this forum, and it's always good to join in a psych event. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And just reading a couple comments. Denisha talked about, using, her personal trainer as a space. And, one of the things that I definitely, and Ali saying we need more space for women for healing spaces. I definitely agree. I always tell people I'm a therapist, so I'm always going to promote therapy. And I also know there are other ways that people can use to heal and to cope. So it doesn't always have to be therapy. But I think is really important, as we close out this session around Black mental wellness, is that we need to recognize that our mental wellness is important, and it is a part of our full health. Our minds and bodies are connected, and we need to pay attention to that and to feed our internal emotional well-being. We need to do things to access that and to make sure we're expressing our emotions and talking about the things that are hard, because when we hold on to it, it manifests in physical illnesses, and it also prevents us from being our best selves. So I just, the message you want to promote around mental health is that it is for us. And I always say, even though therapy wasn't made for us, doesn't mean we can't make it work for us. So I really want to emphasize and leave you with a message is that our Black mental health matters. So thank you all for being here and supporting InnoPsych. I hope to see you all back. Bring a friend next week. All right, take care.
Thank you.
Bye.